He's like a butterfly flapping his wings deep down into the forest, man. It's gonna cause a tree fall like 5,000 miles away, man. There ain't nobody seeing nobody. Man, see, like, you don't even know, man. It's like you're born into this world, man. And you got like that, man, the dust and wind, man. Or like the dang old candle, man. It don't matter, man. It's all the time.
All right, Mark, welcome to the Jay Burden Show. How you doing, man?
Good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, dude, I'm obviously happy to have you back on as far as the conversation goes. But you and I, on our last conversation, talked about how Abigail Spanberger was going to win the Virginia gubernatorial race. And much to my chagrin, we were completely and totally right on that front.
Yeah, we were more right than we thought, because not only did she win, not only was it not close, but it was an incredible blowout. And the other races weren't even close either.
Right. Even the AG race, which is the one where you'd think, there would be there'd be a chance, because, what he was saying about just fantasizing about killing the children of his political opponents, which, you'd think would be a disqualifying gaffe, as they say. But dude, to go down the damage here, I think the real story is the death of Republican identity politics, right? The idea that, well, if we just run our own, then they'll all vote for her. Let me pull this up. So for context, Spanberger won black voters plus 86, Asian plus 60, Hispanic plus 34, and white people by, I believe, plus 6 or plus 11. Regardless, across the board, just a astonishingly poor showing by the church lady.
Yeah, who could have thought it might be a bad idea to run a Jamaican lady to be the governor of Virginia during a time when the Republican Party is all in on anti-immigration politics?
Yeah, I mean, when you say it like that, it almost sounds like it was a bad idea. Almost. Not sure. Maybe the next time we try it, it'll work.
It's interesting, yeah, that she got her doors blown off everywhere, but I mean, that's not surprising because she was a terrible candidate. But if you look at the lieutenant governor race, also, she won every ethnicity except for white, which went 45-55 to Mr. Reed. That's and even in Virginia, that's a pretty nasty number. Like it in a year where you had the first black woman to ever run for governor of Virginia at the top of the ticket, you had a Hispanic AG who, in fairness, he did win Latino men, I suppose, which I guess that's your consolation prize. Yeah. We didn't learn anything. We already knew you win elections in the 21st century by getting your base excited and getting them to come out to vote. That's exactly what happened in 2021 with Youngkin. And if you don't do that, you get humiliated in front of the entire country.
Well, and I think that's sort of an interesting thing. I've been talking a lot about, I'm no doubt you're aware, Mark, of this whole woke right debacle, I assume.
Oh yeah. Oh, what's the James Lindsay, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've been banned of a restraining order from talking about him because I mentioned him too much. But in all seriousness, right? That sort of canard came up about a year and a half ago, right? Just as kind of a way to smear people that liberals don't like. But what's been interesting has been the conclusion of the losses in both Virginia and New Jersey. Which, look, man, there's a very boring, normal nuts and bolts of politics explanation for these two races, which is bad candidates, astonishingly bad in the case of Virginia. The fact that Donald Trump, rightly or wrongly, was seen as threatening the jobs of roughly 8% the working people in our state. And also, let's not bury the lead here. The fact that generally whichever party is in power does poorly in off-year elections and midterms, right? Like this isn't some sort of like secret science here.
Yeah, I'd throw in a fourth one, which is that since the rise of Trump, there's been a slow shift towards Democrats killing it in off-year elections. That used to be something that Republicans performed well at. Now it's the opposite. We're better in presidential year elections, and they're going to have the advantage in off-year. And that's just purely a change of voter demographics. Like you said, you could also hang a little bit of a blame on the big man here, because you had the shutdown, which does not seem to have accomplished anything. I thought at the time maybe the goal was, well, let them shut it down and then we'll lay off a boatload of these we'll get rid of a boatload of these federal employees, but they didn't do that. Right after our election ended, the Democrats in Congress agreed to reopen the government, and the White House got nothing for it. They rehired the few thousand people that they had fired during the shutdown, and it seems to me that they got exactly what they want. They got a boost in the election, and they successfully blamed the Republicans in Congress for Obamacare, which is actually pretty impressive politically if you think about it.
Well, Maarek, I've been reliably informed that the real people we need to blame for this are the so-called woke right, which includes Tucker Carlson, really anyone who wasn't a liberal up until 2016, and most importantly, anyone within 2 degrees of separation from one Nicholas J. Fuentes. Clearly, right, that's a cynical ploy, right? That's a cynical take to say everyone I don't like is the reason that we lost this election that, let's be honest, we were going to lose anyway. But it's been interesting, and I don't know if you picked up on this, there's been a deliberate attempt to saddle J.D. Vance, right, the VP, with the woke right, and by extension, losses in 2025 and then assumed losses in 2026.
Oh yeah, that's very obviously they're trying to do politicking in advance of 2028 because he is right. I mean, it means very little so far away from the election, but he is the front runner right now. He's got the name recognition. He is vice president. He has a lot of support. He gets a lot of people, younger people, which is faint praise when you're talking about the Republican Party. That just means it's some people under 50, because he's a millennial. They're trying to kneecap him in advance so they can shove like Ted Cruz down our throat or something like that. That's just my assumption. I don't have any insider information or anything like that.
All right. Well, I mean, look, that's what I think is going to happen. So I think we can just confirm it, right? Based off of my hunch. That's how a podcast works, I guess. But it is one of those things where it is sort of disappointing to see the GOP learn absolutely nothing. Because, we mentioned this last time, right? The consequences of failure have never been higher, right? You have the so-called seditious six literally saying, we will send Pete Hegseth to jail. We will ship him off to The Hague, right? For war crimes. And it's like, okay, well, remember, like, I don't know, not that long ago when they shipped Donald Trump off to jail and got a mugshot? Like, you think they aren't going to give it a shot?
People didn't take all the talk about the war crimes in The Hague, and it's like this is violating international law because the United States isn't subject to international law. That's true. Our service members are not, and yeah, you're not going to be forcibly extradited to The Hague while Donald Trump is president. But what can happen is if I don't even know who it's going to be at this point. If Gavin Newsom is president in 2029, that absolutely can happen. In fact, it happened successfully to the former president of the Philippines, who was arrested in the Philippines and shipped off to The Hague and is currently on trial there for essentially for killing drug dealers. So, the precedent is already there. It's a very easy way for the Democrats to do something to punish somebody without having the blood on their hands. Like they can say, okay, hey, he's in Europe and he's being tried by a council of all the nations of the world. I have no control over it. I'm just the poor little, lib president of the United States. I think people aren't taking that threat as seriously as they should.
Well, it sucks too, because it's like having Charles Bronson be the president of your country is kind of a cool idea, right? Just having a president who's like, yeah, drug dealers, I personally, as he is alleged to have done, am going to shoot them. You can too if you want. At the very least, it's a novel idea. And, in this kind of like god awful Francis Fukuyama future, right, where every government is basically exactly the same, you just want some novelty, right? Like we should have more, I guess you could say, like 80s action movie themed governments. Like we tried the whole, Death Wish thing, I guess. We could probably substitute some others in there. I think we have not given this idea enough consideration.
This is, I mean, I
Sorry,
obviously,
that pause was fucking funny.
I agree. I agree with all that. I would like to subscribe to your newsletter, but also, yeah, I mean, they have to punish this behavior because the meme going around now is the fix everything easily switch. Like when it comes to like these drug traffickers and pretty much criminals in general, yeah, there is an easy button. Just like to be nice, throw them in jail and throw away the key, or more kinetic options. They have to make it impossible for you to do that because anybody who does it immediately becomes incredibly popular. Like Duterte was initially. I'm not super familiar with Filipino politics, but I imagine he became less popular, because of economic problems or whatever. But people were very happy to watch him go Judge Dredd on drug traffickers in his country. They loved it.
Well, I mean, that's the success story of Bukele, right? The fix everything switch. And it's been interesting to see the sort of hysterical reaction to Trump's comments. Admittedly, these are comments. Where he seems to be getting increasingly fed up with violent crime in the judiciary. And I think that's sort of an interesting question of the Trump presidency, right? Which is, who is in charge? Is it the executive or some judge somewhere? And I think that there's a lot of political hay to be made there because people, myself included, and just other normal people, are incredibly fed up with this routine story of XYZ 35-time offender, right, out on bail for setting someone on fire, decides to kill someone else. You know what I mean? You can even look back at, country music from the 70s, right, to see the same thing, right? You see this mentioned in like If the South Would Have Won, as well as other kind of like, anthems, right? That this is a way to motivate people. Now, obviously, look, like when criminals are a client group of your party, that sort of changes things. But it seems to me that that's winning messaging there, right?
Yeah, it's kind of an intractable problem because as we've discovered the other, I guess it was a day or two ago at this point, Justice Jackson in arguments about with the Solicitor General about, long story short, technocracy in the administrative state. She just came out and said, hey, I think that actually the control of the government should be in the hands of experts, not in the presidency or elected officials, that we have to have this learned tribe of scholars to make all the decisions. And like that is what judges effectively are today in the United States. And the constitutional remedies for this would be impeach the individual judges, which is impossible because you need a supermajority in the Congress to do that, or you could have Congress completely eliminate the circuit court, which ironically would probably be easier than impeachment, but it's also not going to happen. So at that point, there is no legal recourse for the executive, legislative, for the people at all. I really, without saying Fed posty things, I don't know how you how you deal with these problems. Obviously, the judges do not care. They release these people out to rape and murder their fellow citizens, and they don't feel a bit sorry about it. What can you really do to stop that? You can't really change the laws, because it doesn't really matter what someone's charged with if the judge bangs the gavel and releases them without bail, or they get suspended sentence. If you're in a blue state, which, by the way, we're about to become an even bluer state than we were before, you have absolutely no protection from these repeat offenders. And I'm not sure what I'm sure what the solution is, but I'm not sure realistically what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, and to that point, I think one of the other major institutions that has been crumbling is trial by jury. You can probably tell I'm swapping screens. I have a piece coming out soon where I mention this example, which is why I'm pulling it up. Are you familiar with the case of one Gary O. Edwards from Portland?
Oh, I've heard the name. Which one was he?
So Gary is a homeless schizophrenic, and he stabbed another man, incidentally, who also seems to be an unhoused person. And unfortunately, the man that he stabbed, Gregory A. Howard Jr., said a gamer word while being stabbed. And, okay, maybe a poor choice of words, but, understandable perhaps given the circumstances of being stabbed by a schizophrenic. And so this goes to trial, and the jury acquits the guy who stabbed him because of the word he used. Which, look, man, I believe you should generally attempt to be polite, but I feel like getting stabbed, there might be some mitigating circumstances there, right?
Yeah, you can either stab someone or you can request an apology for them saying a slur. You don't get to do both. You got to pick one or the other.
The slur was after the fact.
Yeah, exactly.
The slur was after.
Well, I mean, obviously, the temporal distortion of racism, he detected it in the air, the racist miasma, and that's how he knew that he needed to
a literal Minority Report, one might say.
Yeah. The thing is, this is in Portland. The trial happened in Portland, I assume, right?
It did, yes.
So, it's not like the trial happened in Detroit where you can say, well, they got a jury of people who, they are all in the same ethnic group. I mean, probably not. In Portland, that jury was probably extremely Caucasian. So these are people who just are doing it for love of the game.
Yeah, as someone who's recently been to Portland, I can confirm several things. One, the story does not surprise me in the least. Any part of it. The stabbing, the result in court. But to your point, it is like you were stepping back into a weird, MC Escher version of Newberry, right? Where it's it's the same demos, albeit expressed slightly differently, I guess we could say. But yeah, I mean, that's another thing, right? And this has been a big, talking point in the UK because it's seeming that the government is just getting rid of the system of jury trial. Right. But that was a social technology that depended on, most people being your peers, right, on the same page. And when that collapses, and, you can look into the data of exactly how that has collapsed and along what lines, all of a sudden you can't really count on, the Southerners' favorite jury nullification, right, to come to your rescue.
Yeah, the entire legal, common law legal principles, and this goes back to what we were talking about with the judges before. It's the idea that the law is neutral. Obviously, it never is. Human beings are never neutral about anything. But if you have a mostly homogenous society, then you do have a jury of your peers. There might be reasons, good or bad, where the jury already dislikes you before you sit down and they hear any evidence. But for the most part, we expect that a judge will be impartial and a jury will be impartial. Obviously, judges are not. Judges are essentially employees of the administrative state at this point, most of them are adherents of the progressive religion, and juries are a roll of the dice. Maybe you'll get the jury that, oh shoot, I'm going to bog beef here. The blonde guy with the mustache in New York who Penny.
Daniel
Yeah.
Penny. Yeah.
Maybe you'll get the Daniel Penny jury, or maybe you'll get the Portland jury where the gamer words a death sentence. You don't know. It's a complete roll of the dice.
So, complete and total aside, I'll get back to this point. I liked your use of that verb, bog beefed it, because every once in a while, because I'll have both you and Bog on the show fairly often because I like talking to you. But it's always funny to me when someone who's sort of outside of our circle interacts with Bog Beef in particular, because they'll always leave comments. We'll be like, "Can you keep this guy on track?" I'm like, "No, I can't. No one can." And that's sort of what you sign up for, right? It's like, okay, sure, you can give it a shot. I'd like to see you try though.
I think that Bog Beef and I, we are colleagues on the Good Old Boys podcast, and we've been friends for over 20 years at this point. And it's kind of like, you remember in the Star Wars movie, you got Han Solo and Chewbacca, and Chewbacca talks and Han Solo can understand him, and he has to translate it. That's my role when we're talking with a third party. Like the verb bog beef means you forget the proper noun name of a person, so you just like mad lib it, like, oh yeah, who was that guy with the mustache? He choked the guy to death on the subway, and then I need to pop in with Daniel Penny.
Actually, it's somewhat related. This is the most inside baseball thing ever, because there are about 2 podcasts that I listen to religiously, and it is Good Old Boys and Timeline Earth for very different reasons. But you guys did an episode not too long ago entirely concerned with one of the original makers of Mortal Kombat. Fink, I think was his last name. Dude, I was crying laughing. I had the flu or something that week, so I was dead, hacking up a lung, and I'm like crying laughing, because for those who haven't heard it, this guy is the most hilarious Italian stereotype. Despite being involved in fighting games, which is like a relatively nerdy endeavor, he's just talking about harassing other workers, threatening to fight people if they beat him in a video game, and all of these like nerdy, modern day games journalists are just aghast at this guy. It's great comedy. But to return to your point about Penny, I mean, I think another great example of this is Kyle Rittenhouse. To be perfectly honest, if he had anyone other than a judge born in the 1940s, a guy who looks like he could run a hardware store or something like that. I mean, that kid, I think he got married. Congratulations to Kyle Rittenhouse. But he'd be in jail for the rest of his life if he hadn't basically won that lottery on that judge.
Yeah, there have been a couple of trials that it was kind of obvious one way or the other how it was going to go. That one I felt was on the bubble. And yeah, especially because he was tried in Wisconsin. Was he tried in Wisconsin or Minnesota?
I'm the wrong person to ask. We'll go with Wisconsin.
Yeah, it doesn't. They're both part of Mordor. Anyway, yeah, when your fate is being decided by the legal system in like either one of those cursed 48er states, you're already at a huge disadvantage. He was lucky with the draw both by the judge and the jury. Although, I would say, how could you convict somebody when the guy goes on the stand and admits he was trying to kill him? But our attorney general in a month is going to be a literal communist who says he wants to murder Republicans and their family members, and he's going to be in charge of Virginia law enforcement. So, like, pretty much anything is possible when it comes to the libs.
Do you remember the name of the prosecutor in the Rittenhouse case? Was it Dinger? Was that his last name?
It was something like that. He had like the Star Wars tie. He was the most,
lived out. But I just remember there was this hilarious moment from the trial, and you could tell this guy had never, held a gun in his life, because he has, Kyle's, Bushmaster special with the Amazon red dot, and he's wheeling around the courthouse, pointing it at the entire jury, everyone in attendance, which, I mean, let's be honest, man, I'm glad he got off. That guy seems like a scumbag, but that was kind of a funny move. Just to point a weapon at the entire courtroom.
So just go Punisher on the entire courtroom, pop in a magazine. Would you say it went something like this, Mr. Rittenhouse? Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's one of those. Oh, sorry. I'll let you finish that thought.
I'm just this is just like minutia about the trial. That was his trial. I heard something that I'd never heard before, which was someone successfully using the forward assist on an AR style rifle. He actually used it in like a combat situation. I thought they were just basically for decoration at this point. I don't think anybody ever used that.
Yeah, I mean, there were a number of miraculous things about that, right? Obviously, you have the quite literally 1 in a million use of the forward assist, a feature I have literally never used for its intended purpose, right? Like, to your point, it just seems to be there for decoration. Actually, that birthed one of the funniest. It was one of my mutuals on Twitter. I can't remember who. Posted a fake tweet, right, posing as a lefty, saying, this is the forward assist on an AR-15. It switches it into fully semi-automatic mode.
It's a turbo button.
Yeah, and I think it got picked up by Bloomberg or something like that, right? The tweet shown in the article, which is just hilarious.
The other blessed aspect of that trial is that, like, you're at this 2020 protest full of libtards, and you shoot into the crowd randomly, and like everybody you hit is a convicted sex offender or a wife beater. Like they're all like some kind of violent psychopathic felons.
Which, to go back to Duterte, there's a conclusion you can draw. I won't spell it out for you. Some are saying. But yeah, that was sort of an interesting trial, because I think it also made it entirely clear, which we all knew, right, to what degree American politics is just pure team sports, and the specific, variables of the case do not matter in the slightest, because, all of the lefty 2A for all people, right, who are all, talking about armed minorities are harder to oppress. It's like, well, the moment that someone actually, goes after some, shall we say, community policing, of course, this man needs to be drawn and quartered, right? That was the response. Completely indeterminate or completely unrelated to anything actually in the case, right? It was pure tribal politics, in or out. And yeah, I remember very distinctly, I was in college at the time, listening to Vouch, which, I did, knowing it would make me very angry, go react to this live stream trial, which, let's be honest, it was also just a weird thing to have happened. And I don't know, man, I realized it wasn't entirely as big as like the whole OJ thing, but it did very much feel like the entire nation was watching that trial happen.
It's like I'm old enough to remember the OJ trial, and like, yeah, that was 100% purely like racial, tribal. Everybody who wasn't just completely like in the bag for identity politics, like, knew he was guilty. With the Rittenhouse trial, it was interesting because I think they were having this moment where they were really feeling themselves. They were pretty dominant culturally, politically. It was going to be the beginning of the 1,000-year Biden Reich. And I kind of got the sense that there were people even amongst them who were like, maybe this is going a little bit too far. Maybe we should just ease up on this. We're going to win politically. Let the kid go and we'll kind of de-escalate. And that might have been what happened, but I mean, unfortunately now we're in the exact opposite situation. This is like, we're in like 2018 or 2019, and things they're very angry. They're getting nutty. I mean, again, I'm not going to belabor the point about the man who's in charge of law enforcement in our state, but he's openly Fed posting in public. And not only did the libs in Virginia vote for him, the quote unquote moderates voted for him too, over Jason Mraz, who's just, there's no reason to dislike Jason Mraz other than he's a Republican. Things are going to get really nasty in the near future, and I'm not sure people are ready for people think that normies think they know where normal people stand about political violence and these kind of behaviors, but they don't. And this should have been a wake up call, if nothing else. Like the idea that I think in 5 or 10 years ago, Jones would have resigned immediately when that came out. But it's a new day, and frankly, nobody really cares about political violence in the end. And that's the teachable lesson from this election. No one really cares. Keep that in mind.
All right. Hey, guys, this is something a little bit different than normal. This episode is sponsored in a different way than how I normally do it. North Appalachian Supply, it's owned by a friend of mine, supports the show. And he's running a sale on all of his nylon gear, all kinds of stuff, pipe bags, shotgun cards, slings, anything like that you need. So if you go over there and use code JBurden, J.Burden, send some money my way, help him out, one of our guys who's getting his business off the ground. So if you're interested in last minute stocking stuffers for those just lunatics, I assume you're buying gifts for, head over to North Appalachian Supply. We linked in the description. Help them out, support them. We get a good product. I've been using a dump pouch that he made me every time I go to the range, and it is very good. I like it a lot. He's a good guy. Highly recommend their product. So head over there, check it out. Use my code JBurden. Thanks. Well, are you familiar? He's kind of faded from relevance with Carl Casarda.
No, not familiar with him at all.
He's now turned himself into kind of a lolcow. But years ago, he shared a YouTube channel with Ian McCollum, Forgotten Weapons fame, who does these kind of 10-minute like mini explorations of weird guns, right? For instance, today, he did a breakdown of Garand, right, of M1 Garand fame, his like final project, which was this crazy like pneumatically operated gun, just very professional, just talks about it. Like 10 years ago, he had the second side project with this guy Carl, where they would do more hands-on testing, right? This was the era of durability testing. You dump something in mud, you see how it performs. It kind of low intensity content, right? Fast forward to 2016, this guy Carl goes nuts. Absolutely nuts. Starts a fight with ARFCOM, right? One of the biggest gun forums that's continuing to this day. Kiwi Farms, the whole lot. He's a self-described Satanist, big into trans women, absolute lunatic. So anyway, the reason I bring this up, this is relevant, is Wired Magazine does an article, The Hard Left Shooters Leading a Gun Culture Revolution, all about John Brown Gun Club, all about the 2A for all, right, community, which is basically, autistic men equally interested in, modifying firearms and, shall we say, rearranging their own bodies in a somewhat similar sense. And what's interesting about that article is not any content. It's not a particularly good article. Nothing really happens in it. But the language about it is kind of scary because the whole thing is presented as, wow, the fascist Republicans are so scary that these, innocent trans women who are just so beautiful. The language is almost disgusting, right? The way it talks about these people. It's so over the top, it seems more out of like Sama's or, like fucking Baghdad Bill or whatever. But point is, the whole thing is littered with these references to, the upcoming years of lead, right? The idea that, it is morally justifiable for, trans people, minorities, any of these sort of client groups to pick up arms against the fascist state, just over and over and over again. And it's interesting because look, like Wired is a pretty lefty mag, but it's not like Vice or something like that. Like they have a relatively normal readership, kind of Reddit-y, but this isn't like the most extreme thing out there. And to see political violence explicitly talked about in a magazine like that, I don't know, it kind of took me aback to your point, right? Like how off the table do we assume political violence is? And again, this is not a good thing. I'm not saying this is great. I'm so excited for that to happen. Like, far from it. I think this is going to get very, very nasty. And it seems like they're sort of spinning themselves up into a fever pitch almost.
I just the first thing that came to mind when you described that Wired article was like one of those inserts with the photograph with the subtitle like Juniper swapped out she hers lower receiver. But
That's pretty much what it is, man.
the thing is, okay, but this isn't funny because, yeah, they are forming militias in the open. And this is Donald Trump's fault. This is the DOJ's fault. As soon as Charlie Kirk was killed, every John Brown gun club in the United States should have been investigated. Arrests should have been made. Everybody who was in the Discord server with the transsexual chaser killer, his friend group, everybody should have been arrested. They should have done what happened after January 6th. They didn't do that, which says to me that they don't know what time it is to use the meme formula. And when your enemies are gunning up and they're saying like, hey, it's a shame we have to do this, but we have to get ready to kill our political opponents because we're just so darn justified in our insane psychotic behavior. And you're getting backed up by, ostensibly Wired magazine is like about computers and technology. Like why did you make this article in the first place? But it's obvious. It's like every other magazine, every media corporation that's not explicitly right wing. Their job is to spread progressive propaganda and spread the religion. So, like, if they don't use the state power of the state to deal with this, which would not even be invalid, that is actually their job. I don't know. Maybe they expect us to have gunfights in the streets with insane communist transsexuals, like that somehow that's supposed to be our job. Maybe that's the view of this administration. I would certainly hope not, but they kind of act that way. It's like Rittenhouse. Rittenhouse should have never been in that position. He should never had to do that. He shouldn't have had to shoot someone. He shouldn't have had to been on trial. Like the National Guard should have been there and stopped those people. And the ATF, the FBI, here's a good opportunity for you to go track down these maniacs who are arming themselves for political purposes, but they're not doing that.
Well, exactly. And I've been particularly frustrated with, and this is relevant, I promise, with a lot of the language about affordability, right, coming out of the administration. The big man repeating twice, it's a Democrat hoax. Because, look, I get it. The economy is a complicated thing. But there are a lot of other things which aren't that complicated. Like finding a group of people on a Discord. Or finding a number of people who are pictured in HD in an article saying, we are politically arming ourselves to basically shoot your constituents. It's like, well, dude, you're in charge, right? You can... allegedly, right? If we assume that we put you there for a reason, you have access to levers that we don't here. You can do things that we don't. And so, look, like politics is ultimately transactional. And if you're not doing anything for me, why do you feel entitled to my support? Like the whole reason people have this sort of undying loyalty towards Trump is that he was seen as being on their side much more so than any other Republican in recent history. And so he got that crazy loyalty. But if you don't hold your end of the deal up, it's like, well, why are you surprised that support is decaying? Right? Like this is a transactional relationship at base.
Yeah, at the very start of this administration, when they were making moves every day and the libs were on the back foot, his popularity was higher than it normally is. I don't think it was ever really very far above water, but that's just to be expected with partisan politics today. But they ran out of steam, and now they're reactive, and they're falling back. They seem to be falling back into the typical Republican stance of, well, here's what I'm offering to you, my clients. I'm going to just not let my enemies do the things to you that they want to do to you, which, okay, protection is part of the patron-client relationship, but you can't just offer that. You have to offer something positive, because saying like that, I'm not as bad as the other guy, that doesn't get people excited. They're not going to go the extra mile to work for you. They're not going to even come out and vote for you, as we saw in November of this year. It doesn't work. And I mean, I'm making it, I don't know, I'm undercomplicating it a little bit, because obviously there's a lot of structural problems for the administration. They don't have a great control over the permanent bureaucracy. They have obvious troubles with the judicial system. Congress is useless because there are enough traitorous Republicans, like people like McConnell, who actually want Trump to fail, that he can't really rely on them. But that just means you have to double down on executive authority. And they do, like yesterday they put out a saying that, hey, we no longer acknowledge that disparate impact is a valid legal concept, and things like that. That's cool. That's good. You should have done that months and months ago. But you're going to have to at some point flex the muscle and just straight up use executive authority in a positive way. Otherwise, when 2028 rolls around, the Democrats are going to destroy them, because they won't have done anything for their constituents. And I mean, the economy's, we know inflation's going to be worse. The economy's probably going to be worse. All the problems that are here today are, aside from perhaps immigration, after 4 years of deportations and self-deportations, it might be noticeably better, but not if they replace all the Guatemalans they deport with Indians and Pakistanis and Chinese people. So I don't know. If you have nothing to show at the end of 3 years, you're gonna get exactly what you earned.
Exactly, and you know that Republicans don't understand patronage because of the way that they constantly attempt to poach certain groups from the Democrats. You hear this line over and over again. The idea of like a natural conservative or a natural Republican. Reagan infamously quipped, right? Latinos are Republicans. They just don't know it yet. And yeah, sure. There have been some demographic changes, and we understand that, Hispanic doesn't mean a whole lot, and, people from certain areas, vote different ways. But also, how long has it been since Reagan said that? What has become of the country since then on a demographic level? And how do those places vote? They have not suddenly discovered that they are natural Republicans. Far from it. And why is it? On a certain level, you can see the logic, right? Well, these people are Catholic. Catholics are generally, seemingly socially conservative. So they should align with the conservative nominally party. Well, there's a couple things there, which is one, there's a world of difference between socially conservative for their culture, socially conservative for your culture. And also there's the fact that they get paid directly and indirectly not to vote for you, right? You mentioned, disparate impact. That's a huge one. Affirmative action. As we mentioned in this case in, Portland, you get a sort of samurai-esque deference from law enforcement, right? Assuming you're in a particular area. And also, there's a huge difference between being socially conservative and being part of the conservative movement. Those things are not correlated at all. And so you have Black Americans who are on an issue by issue basis to the right of basically everyone when it comes to things like homosexuality and a few other, kind of progressive shibboleths. But as we've seen in this recent election, they didn't vote for the nominal social conservatives. And I think a big part of it is that conservatives, one, feel like they need some sort of affirmation from those groups, like they're not legitimate unless they have, the Jesse Jackson seal of approval. But also, I think that conservatives are under the severely mistaken idea that these groups actually want equality. They want fair treatment. No, they don't. they have a pretty good deal worked out, and they get a whole lot more than that. So, as our progressive friends are fond of reminding us, when you're in a position of privilege, equality feels like oppression. I guess I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, they're all excellent points. I'd say the first one I'd touch on is, why do the Republicans do this? Well, mainly because there are two reasons. One, everyone who's alive and not in like a nursing home today, who's still involved in politics one way or the other, was born, either after or at the very tail end of like the Roosevelt administration. So everyone alive involved in politics, even an old man like Donald Trump, they have been raised most of their life within the progressive religion, and one way or the other, there's like a veneration of Black Americans that just, it doesn't matter if it works politically for you or not. It's just always there, and they really desperately want that approval from, just like 12% of the population, and they don't like you politically. It's very stupid to try to chase that, because funny enough, Trump did make some tiny inroads with Black men in the last election, because he was doing things for his clients, and some of the brothers were like, "Hey, I like to get in on that, because the Democrats aren't doing a lot for me anymore. It's they've shifted towards some new demographic groups that they're chasing after." But all that aside, it's all, you are always about giving things to your friends, and you pay for it by taking things either from the general population, or better yet, from your enemies. And if you're doing anything other than that, when it comes to like the nuts and bolts of politics, you are committing complete malpractice. And that's just what the Republicans have always done. And the other aspect is they, not just the approval of like minority groups, but the approval of their lib and progressive colleagues. They want to be able to go out and have dinner with these people. They don't want to get the Trump treatment from the media. Like, you have to be a special kind of person to accept that kind of hatred and not be strongly affected by it. And most people can't do that. The second thing, if there were such a thing as natural conservatives, obviously the brothers would have been voting for Republicans for like 30 years at this point, 30 or 40 years at this point. But there's no such thing. It's easier to see this in Europe because of the political situation in the migrant countries. But like, a Turkish person in Germany will vote in the Turkish election for the most hard right fascist political party. But in Germany, he supports, the Greens, anybody who's going to give him stuff. He is politically a communist in Germany and politically a fascist back home. And this is how most people are. If you're getting money from the United States government, it doesn't really matter what you think deep in your heart about the tax system or whether or not gay people should be married. You care about what they're going to do for you. And that's universal. I hope Republicans are kind of starting to understand that, but the lure of the lie will always be there.
Yeah, well, and I think that to that point, you're right. Like, England's probably the best example to hand because I can read their newspapers. But you have this really bizarre alliance between effectively the far left and actual Islamicists, right? People who believe in, Sharia law and, killing animals in a bizarre way to eat them. And on its surface, that makes no sense, right? Why would this gay guy, politically align himself to someone who wishes to escort him out of a building through alternative means, to put it that way? It doesn't make any sense. But to your point, right, these people are quite conservative, but for their culture, right? So they don't seem to want, gay stuff in their schools. But if that happens to you, it is of no concern to them, especially if they're being paid, right? They're getting a dole. They're getting they're getting patronage. And I think perhaps the premier example of this is Rep Ilhan Omar. I'm sure you've seen the clip going around of her talking to Somalians in Somali, where she basically says, I am a representative of your interests. My primary goals are giving you money and ensuring that Ethiopia doesn't take more territory from Somalia, which is, refreshingly honest, probably a little bit cynical to do it in her native language instead of that of the country in which she lives. But either way, right? She is someone who's basically a blood and soil nationalist, but not for you, of course, right? For you, it's communism. For her, it's fascism. For her, it is, full on, Austrian painter blood and soil stuff. And I think it's James Kirkpatrick, a friend of mine, who said basically everyone is a blood and soil nationalist for somewhere. I'm butchering the quote, but we'll go ahead with it.
For the nation that they care about, which is and that's I was gonna bring that. He's got a show now. Is he using his government name, as the brothers say now, or is he still?
No, he is. Well, it's funny. Actually, I know him. Like we're friends, and I've met him, and I didn't realize he's on his channel as Kevin Deanna. That's his name.
Oh, okay.
But I knew him as James Kirkpatrick, and it turns out he was Greg Hood. And look, I don't pay attention to doxing just as a rule. It doesn't particularly interest me. But despite knowing the guy, I've been to his house. I did not realize that bit of information. And so it was sort of funny to realize that was all one guy. But point is, his new show's great. I've been on there, which is a reason you should check it out. But I'll be sure to link to it because Kevin's doing good work. He actually also has a Twitter-only 40K podcast, which is pretty good. I highly recommend it if you're one of the, shall we say, non-neurotypical members of the audience who might be interested in that.
I have to tell, Bog Beef has gotten into Warhammer with our friend Hellbelly Elegy has gotten him into it. It was the gateway drug, and I constantly getting emails from these places that sell the little like either metal or plastic men, because we have the podcast email account. So I'm just next time, hey, there's a new Ultramarine set out, only $550. But yeah, I guess if Warhammer is extremely popular on the right for obvious reasons, it's probably one of the last bastions of
dude, it's they're trying to pause it so hard. I've actually been like pretty successfully getting myself out of 40K as a deliberate strategy. It's really, I said about this like 2 years ago, because I realized that they control you through these properties. Like they drag you around by the nose to basically fund their stuff and their guys. And I sort of realized, I was like, you know what? Like if I do this, if I buy their stuff, they got me, in some small way. And they make me care, because then I get upset when their stuff is in it. And if I just, emotionally divorce, if I take the clear pill, right, to crib from Yarvin, it's cleaner. But yeah, man, it's actually funny. I was DMing back with Bug Beef about this. I was actually a commission painter in college, so I used to do like people's armies and stuff like that. It was a ton of fun, and the core message, especially the older stuff of that franchise, is actually really fascinating. It's a deeply, deeply reactionary setting where it's basically like the world is dying, the evil is real, and at a moment's notice, if you let degeneracy slide, hell will appear wherever you are and kill you to death with like, the most horrific things possible. So therefore, the only way to resist it is, National Socialism in space, which is an incredibly reactionary message. And literally, like, that is the underlying thesis of that. They've been trying to get away from it, but it is, it's no shock that so many of our guys are into it.
I don't know anything about it, but I saw the demon, like there are different demon armies, and the one is like the weird transsexual pervert army, and the other is the big fat disgusting diseased army. It's like that is such a perfect. I if you were trying to set up sides in a way that would explain modernity to people, like you could do a lot worse than those two particular archetypes of entropy.
No, I mean, to that point, and not to get too much into 40K lore, which I realize is effectively non-hormonal birth control, but quite literally, the there is space elves got up to so much gay activities that it birthed a new god. It was quite literally, they were so degenerate that it created basically like a second Satan who is purely devoted to sexual degeneracy. So literally, if you are too gay, you will create like a rape demon, effectively.
You goon so hard you rip a hole in the space-time continuum and create.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, look, that's directionally true.
Yeah, basically it's a world where gooning is a national security risk, and they'll just nuke the planet if your goon cave grows too big.
That's the only way to be sure.
Which, going back to Duterte, there's an argument to be made. You know, maybe Charlie Kirk would still be around if we were sending predator drones to goon caves.
If the 21st century has taught us anything, it's the idea that, like, well, what could it hurt is the dumbest possible position to hold, because like we just watched it over. I saw today they did a poll that like now young men are for the first time against sports betting, and it's like, well, yeah, because the idea abstractly of sports betting seemed okay 10 years ago. Now your fucking friends are all, going broke on parlays, and people are fixing NFL games and stuff like that. Yeah. We see the problem. What was the problem? Well, what happens if we let them get married? Well, we saw what happened when they got married. They're about to create a black hole and suck us all into the Hellraiser dimension.
Well, like really, if the slippery slope is not a fallacy, it is the undefeated heavyweight champion of the 21st century or the 20th century, right? Just undefeated, alleged fallacy. But I mean, to that point, dude, like, look, like I'm sure you remember when they legalized skill games in our state, and now it's like anytime I go to a gas station, it's like someone's grandma spending her rent money to like spin a pirate themed, digital slot machine, and it's like, look, man, like. I'm not a big proponent of banning things. Like, it's just not in my character. It's not really in, our culture, broadly speaking, right? But like, I see that, I'm like, all right, make that go away. That lady she is living a miserable life because we thought it would add some fraction to the GDP to let people put casinos in gas stations. And it's like, it's the fix everything switch, right? It's like, we're drowning in a bathtub. We can just say no. And look, like gambling has always existed. People have always made bad decisions, but there's a world of difference between like your skeevy uncle, going to a Greyhound track and like, going to a 7-Eleven at 3 a.m. and seeing someone's grandma, just swipe for hours on end. I don't know, man.
The separation was necessary. The fact that you had to go, you'd have to drive all the way to Charlestown, which I did many times, and I'm not really a gambler, but it's going to be an event because we're at the racetrack and there's all this stuff happening. But now it's like every foreigner who owns a 7-Eleven has his own little gay ass casino in the back corner, and like my most right wing opinion about anything is like, if I was the dictator of the United States, I would burn down every head shop and I would destroy all these video poker machines, like stuff like that. I would get rid of it day one because it's obviously bad. Put that stuff back into the back alleys, put it in the red light district, get it away from the public. Everybody will be happier. The people who like the vices, they'll enjoy it more too because it'll be cooler for them. Nothing's cool about the video poker machine. Gambling might be cool, but that is not cool. That is the lamest, saddest thing on the planet.
Well, yeah, look, man, like there's a world of difference. For instance, right? Every year they have a big horse race at James Madison's house out in Orange County. And it's fun, right? It's basically like Country Club Talladega. Everyone shows up, you wear fancy clothes, you get smashed, and you bet on horses that you know nothing about, right? But that's once a year, and it's an event, right? You go there to do that. It's sort of a Saturnalia-esque affair. It is not everywhere all at once. Like literally, you pick up your phone, you open an app and you can bet the most degenerate like multi-leg parlays possible. Or alternately, right, as regards substances, it's not like you're getting, Jay's, Uber Eats to your house. And again, man, like I'm not some kind of high-handed, pearl clutching conservative. This shouldn't be allowed. The kind of stereotype of the 1920s temperance movement. Like generally, just my character is to be pretty liberal on something like that. But to your point, right, it's like these head shops appear everywhere, and it drags everything down. Now everywhere is a seedy back alley. At least if it was constrained in one place, you could avoid it. But now it's like I can't go to a store without it smelling, stinking like weed, or watching, someone gamble their life away. And I don't know, man, to your point, like that is, I think, my most reactionary moments are right then, particularly as you've mentioned, when it is, shall we say, a new arrival running the store, where you're just like, what? Anyway, I probably shouldn't finish that thought.
Every square inch of the country has to be a casino. It has to be a head shop. An opium den. It has to be a homeless shelter. Every single square patch of dirt has to be just crammed full of the creatures of scale. Like, yes, this is, I mean, if, I don't know, is there a Warhammer army of just like overpopulated, disgusting goblin creatures? Because like that's the end boss of progressivism. Because like they love scale so dearly that it's just like Matt Iglesias is probably the most perfect example, because like he would be happy if you had everyone, like every person on planet Earth stacked like cordwood in the continental United States. Like that's his dream world. And I don't know how you deal with these people, but I have some thoughts about it.
Look, I mean, I hear there's a former leader of the Philippines who's in need of a job, assuming he can get work release from prison, I guess. But Mark, dude, it was a ton of fun to have you on. I'm gonna have to wrap up, but where can people find you, man?
So we have a show on Patreon. It's Good Old Boys with a Z, GOODOLBOYZ. We also stream on Kick on Tuesdays and on Fridays. So you can catch us in either of those places. And when are you coming on the show to speak with both of us?
I'll come on again. We had a good time last time. Literally, anytime you want. I'm a professional podcaster, which means that I have quite literally nothing better to do. But I realize, you guys are doing well on Kick, but I think you guys are going about it all wrong. You're doing a show, you're doing it more, making it better. You need to really lean into the IRL streaming and just start harassing people in public, or conceivably, as we've seen with Raja Jackson, just commit a major felony on stream for donations. So I don't know what you guys are up to, but maybe if you could just find someone and beat them half to death or harass them, it might be good for the brand, is what I'm saying.
It's just a prank, bro. It's just a prank. Put the gun down.
That one kid who got shot for harassing a pizza delivery guy, that was in Nova, I think. I can't remember where it was. It was close to us, but that's one of those just like perfect, like instant karma. Like you can imagine it on like your grandpa's Facebook feed, the like FAFO compilations.
I know.
It's just a perfect moment.
I know how I would have voted on that jury.
Yeah, in a Duterte-esque fashion, one might say. Whatever, Mark, it was great having you, man. As far as my stuff, Jay Burden Show, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere you listen to podcasts. If you throw me a few bucks, get the episodes early and ad-free. Check out Good Old Boys. Mark, it's great speaking with you. Everyone at home, keep your head up. Life can't last forever. Good night.